1916, the third year of the Great War. Politicians and generals promise a decisive victory, the end of the slaughter. In reality, they are preparing a year of great illusions and of the worst carnage imaginable. On the Western Front, a scar runs almost 465 miles from the North Sea to Switzerland. Yet the epicenter of this hell is neither a capital nor a great industrial city, but a small bend of the Meuse around a provincial French town, Verdun. Here, from February 21 to December 1916, Germans and French soldiers butcher one another for a few miles of torn, devastated ground. In all, more than 700,000 men were killed, wounded, or listed as missing. 10 months of fire, mud, and steel for a front line that, in the end, lies almost where it began. French soldiers sum it up this way: if you have not seen Verdun, you have seen nothing of the war. On this narrow scrap of ground, in barely 5 months, about 30 million shells would fall. In the end, the reckoning is simple and terrible. 6 dead for every 3 yards of line. Long before 1916, Verdun was a symbol. In distant 843, here a treaty was signed that split Charlemagne's empire into 3 kingdoms. 2 of them would become, more or less, France and Germany. In 1792, the fortress of Verdun fell under the blow of the Prussians at war with revolutionary France. In 1870, it was besieged again in the Franco-Prussian War. Its capitulation opened the road to the French defeat and left a scar on national pride. In 1916, Verdun was a town on the Meuse, sent in a salient, a bulge in the French lines and a dent in the German ones, ringed by around 20 forts. On paper, it was an impregnable stronghold, yet the garrison had about 20,000 men, and many forts were almost empty. Much of the heavy artillery had been moved elsewhere for the 1915 offensives. For Erich von Falkenhayn, it was the perfect target, precious to France, yet exposed enough to be struck from 3 sides. The plan was simple and brutal. Hit Verdun, force the French, for pride more than strategy, to commit their reserves there, then grind them down with artillery in a long battle of attrition.
Did you know that most people who watch our documentaries aren't subscribed yet? If you enjoy animated maps and history, join our community. Leave a like and subscribe so you never miss the next episodes.
On 12 February 1916, the Germans were ready to strike Verdun. Batteries in position, infantry deployed on both banks of the Meuse. But snow and ice froze the sector. Roads became impassable. Surprise vanished. For days, the troops stayed in shelters while the French, once they grasped the danger, strengthened the sector with new trenches and divisions. At dawn on 21 February, the weather improved. Shortly after 7:15 a.m., about 850 German guns opened fire on the French positions. The bombardment lasted 9 hours. Trenches pulverized, woods uprooted, hills turned into fields of craters. Men and mud became indistinguishable. It was the storm of steel, the deliberate, systematic destruction that industrial war could unleash on roughly 2 miles of front. When the fire slackened, the infantry moved in. The principle was always the same. Artillery conquers, infantry occupies. On a front of 14 kilometers, roughly 9 miles, on the right bank of the Meuse, around 140,000 German infantry advanced in waves under the orders of Crown Prince Wilhelm of Prussia, son of the Kaiser and commander of the Fifth Army, a young officer considered intelligent and backed by an experienced staff. In the Bois de Coeur, just over 1,200 chasseurs under Colonel Émile Giant faced them almost surrounded. They were crushed by fire but slowed the advance and bought precious hours for the French defense. The Germans were not only more numerous, they also wielded new and deadly weapons. They used flamethrowers on French positions and made extensive use of fighter and reconnaissance aircraft. In their Verdun sector, they concentrated several dozen machines, roughly twice the French strength. Many were the latest generation single-seat fighters with synchronized machine guns firing through the propeller arc. The French replied with Nieuports and other lighter, more maneuverable biplanes, but they were less protected and relied more on rudimentary armament. In the first days, the initiative remained German. Their squadrons ruled the sky over Verdun and covered an advance that by evening had opened a gap up to almost 4 miles, deep in the French lines. The front was shattered, entire units wiped out, yet Verdun had not fallen. Fort Douaumont is the keystone of Verdun's defensive system, the largest fort and the one pushed farthest toward the German lines. On paper, it is the position that must never fall, the concrete and earth anchor of the whole sector. To French planners, it is the cornerstone of the whole shield. Yet after 3 days of bombardment, contradictory reports, and confused orders, on 25 February 1916, it falls almost without a fight. That day, a detachment of the 24th Brandenburg Regiment worked its way up to the fort among shell craters and half-destroyed outworks. Inside, there are very few defenders and almost no heavy artillery. The big guns have been removed months earlier to serve on other fronts. The Germans find open hatches and unguarded entrances, slip inside practically without firing. A single platoon, moving through dark passages and stairways, is enough to seize the bastion that is supposed to symbolize Verdun's resistance. For the garrison, the disaster feels both sudden and absurd to everyone involved. For Berlin, it is a triumph. The breach in the ring of forts seems to fling open the road to the city. Crown Prince Wilhelm of Prussia comes to Douaumont to offer congratulations. Imperial communiques celebrate the fall of the most powerful French fort. For France, it is a brutal blow to morale. The propaganda machine tries to minimize the loss, but in Paris it is obvious that Verdun stands on the edge of disaster. A few months later, in May 1916, an explosion in the ammunition stores inside Douaumont will kill hundreds of German soldiers. The fort, taken almost without a shot, claims its own delayed blood tribute from the occupiers. Meanwhile, the town below is hammered by a huge 15-inch naval gun mounted on a railway carriage. Its shells devastate the center, smash the cathedral, and level entire districts. The civilian population flees inland. Verdun reels and empties, turned into a bleak military landscape. At this point, the French High Command intervenes. General de Castelnau sends a simple order. Not 1 inch of ground is to be given up. Joffre recalls Philippe Pétain, gives him command of the Second Army and the task of holding Verdun at any cost. Commanders repeat, "Ils ne passeront pas." They shall not pass. And Pétain urges his troops on with "Courage, on les aura." Courage, we will beat them. This time, France has decided that Verdun will not fall. Philippe Pétain is an unusual general. Cautious, methodical, little inclined to offensives for honor. He repeats that men must not be thrown against a machine, that fire kills. At Verdun, he turns this idea into a defensive system organized in detail. To withstand the German blow, he starts with supply. He has a country road of 47 miles between Bar-le-Duc and Verdun repaired, It will become the Voie Sacrée, the Sacred Way. Along that artery, day and night, up to 6,000 trucks carry ammunition and food. During the battle, 2 million men travel on it, rotated in and out of the sector. Around the town, Pétain has the surviving forts rearmed, restores the batteries, and strengthens artillery positions. The French 75s are joined by heavier pieces able to answer German guns. Divisions are fed into a rotation. Exhausted units are pulled out and replaced by fresher formations. It is not kindness, it is calculation. He knows that if he leaves the same troops too long in that sector, Verdun will give way from nervous collapse before it does from lack of men. In their diaries, the soldiers no longer write, "We are going on the attack," but "We are going to work." Laying barbed wire, digging, repairing trenches, hauling shells through the mud. Day and night blur. Men live among water, earth, rats, and corpses that cannot be recovered. Verdun does not collapse in a single blow. It stiffens and turns into a living fortress fed by trucks, rails, and artillery. The Battle of Attrition, conceived to break France, begins to work, but yard by yard it wears down the German army. On the left bank of the Meuse, the battle focuses on two heights, Hill 304 and Mortagne, Dead Man's Hill. The Germans commit 26 divisions and, after months of fighting, takes one fort and a few stretches of trench. The hills turn into fields of craters. The geography is erased. The war also moves underground. Both armies dig trenches and galleries, while military miners work beneath no man's land. On the surface, many bodies remain where they fell, because to recover them means exposing oneself to fire. Mud, rats, and decay turn the front into a cemetery where the living share ground with the dead. To artillery and flamethrowers is added phosphine gas, which burns the lungs and kills. Constant bombardments, gas, and machine guns transform Verdun into serial death, compared by historians to an assembly line applied to soldiers' bodies. In this setting comes the drama of Fort Vaux. On 7 June 1916, the Germans launched the final assault in the fort's tunnels. Major Sylvain Reynal's garrison holds out until the water runs out. For 15 days, the men drink urine and lick moisture from the walls. The last call for help is entrusted to a pigeon that crosses the front and dies poisoned. It will receive the Légion d'honneur. Reynal, with no more men or ammunition, surrenders, and the Crown Prince grants him military honors. Fort Vaux falls, but becomes the symbol of Verdun. Hundreds of dead on both sides for a few concrete rooms that are now nothing more than an underground tomb. On 1 July 1916, the Battle of the Somme opens, an Anglo-French offensive designed to ease the pressure on Verdun by forcing the Germans to shift artillery and divisions towards Picardy. On the first day, the British lose 20,000 men, and the German army is hit hard. For Falkenhayn, the problem is clear. He can no longer bleed France white at Verdun without the same time bleeding Germany, between Verdun and the Somme. Losses are too high. Attrition is mutual. By late June, the last German attack on Verdun finally falls. In August, on the Kaiser's orders, Falkenhayn is removed and replaced by Hindenburg and Ludendorff. The trap designed to break France has now completely closed on the German army. On the French side, after months of defense, command changes. Pétain, the man of Verdun, is promoted. In his place comes General Robert Nivelle, flanked by Charles Mangin, nicknamed the Butcher for his ruthlessness with his troops. The goal is no longer to hold. In the autumn of 1916, the French command prepares a counteroffensive, massing dozens of heavy batteries until the balance of fire, which in February was in German hands, is reversed. On 19 October, the attack begins. In a few days, hundreds of thousands of shells are fired, a density comparable to the German opening of the battle. On 24 October, the infantry moves back into Fort Douaumont, the symbol of the February disaster, taking thousands of German prisoners and capturing dozens of guns along the sector. At the start of November, the Germans, worn down, evacuate Fort Vaux, which the French reoccupy soon afterward. From that moment, a series of limited attacks progressively reduces the German salient at Verdun. After 10 months of fighting, on 19 December 1916, the Inferno of Verdun is finally declared over. By the end of 1916, the reckoning at Verdun is that of a slaughter. 378,000 French casualties, of which 162,000 dead, and 330,000 German casualties, with 143,000 dead. In all, 710,000 lives broken. In just over 5 months, 30 million shells have been fired. Someone will do the math and speak of 6 dead for every yard of front. For the French, Verdun becomes the saved battle. For many Germans, especially after the war, it remains the symbol of an army that was not beaten in the field, but worn down to exhaustion. Around the town, 9 villages erased from the map are never rebuilt, and the Douaumont ossuary gathers the remains of more than 130,000 soldiers, French and German together. Decades later, in 1984, the Presidents Mitterrand and Kohl will stand hand in hand in the rain, turning a symbol of war into one of reconciliation. If you want to keep following the story of the Great War, from the Somme to Gallipoli and the Trench War on the Western Front, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell. Leave a like if you want more videos on the Great War.